The biggest leak in Xbox history, and EAFC is here. This is VGC, a video game podcast with me, Jordan Midler, Chris Scullion, and Andy Robinson. Andy, you're back. How you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. How was? Can we say where you were?
I haven't been on for a while. I haven't been on for a month.
Oh, Jesus.
So I've been at Gamescom. We published a load of our Japan interviews. I was in LA last week for an Alan Wake trip, which was quite cool. It's quite old school.
Yeah.
Actual trips back. I know we've had bits and pieces, but I think it's the first one that I've been on that I can remember, a big proper trip where they had a full event, all kind of, built up to look like it was from the game, and all the cast were there. And, I got to play a couple of hours and speak to Sam Lake and lots of people involved. I'm not actually publishing anything until next week. Excuse me. I think I was just allowed to say that I've been at this point. It's a bit odd how, I mean, in the world of social media, they need to have embargoes about when you can say you've been there now, to avoid all the reviews that were going on while I was there. Yes. So that embargo, funnily enough, was it just said September 20. So I had an advantage as from what I can tell, one of the only British guys there. So I put it up at 1 minute past midnight.
Did Sam Lake do the face? This is the important
Have
question.
that, Americans. Did he pull the face? I don't know. I think that's under embargo.
Surely that is his face. Like if pulls
I know.
the face,
Like if you want, it's like when they say if you want to be original, don't get a tattoo. If you want to be original, don't ask him to pull the face.
But is he
I'm pretty sure he loves it.
Is it at least not like Martinet, where he doesn't just do the face without being asked, whereas Martinet just did the voice before you even asked him?
Sam Lake definitely loves it. He definitely loves it.
Yeah.
I've seen him in coffee shops before, like probably there just to hope that someone sees
Just
him.
setting like up.
He's living the life. Like he definitely loves it.
Yeah. How are you, Chris? Have you pulled the face recently?
Mate, I pull the face nightly. I'm just... the only face I'm pulling is the board face, because there's so little news that went on this week.
Oh yeah, it was a quiet one.
Hate these quiet ones, yeah. But I'm sure you've managed to dig some stuff out.
Oh,
hold on. Have they just announced that Hotel Barcelona
Yeah,
that Suda was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
Quietly seething.
And we were there 2 months
ago. Quietly seething. I get the PR
through a translator.
Yeah, and he was all
like, oh, I don't know what that game is. What's
like,
that?
Every time I try to get in touch with Swery 6580 blanks me. He doesn't reply.
That's how he speaks.
I was just playing a voice recording there of what he said. I don't know, mate. Yeah, we asked him about it because it's been teased for years, and he's just like, yeah, nothing's happening. And then, like 2 months later, they're like, here's
maybe after. To be fair, what is it? Just like a piece of concept art or something? Maybe after we interviewed him, he thought, shit, I should get back on that.
Give me my Crayolas out. No, they've showed actual footage. It looks really cool. It's like a 2D action game, and it's based on 80s horror movies. So there's like a big Friday the 13th.
Go on, describe the monster, Chris. Describe it.
The concept art they've shared is an alien style
fucking
monster
hell.
with large genitalia.
Okay, just because the boss is back, we have to pretend.
No, it's not to do with the boss being back, it's to do with being on air.
Speaking of, I'm sure there were some large genitalia getting squarely kicked this week, because the biggest Xbox leak in history has happened. Where do we start? We're going to start with Microsoft is planning to release a redesigned Xbox Series console, codenamed Brooklyn, with a new design and controller. That's according to court documents published as part of Microsoft's recent legal battle with the FTC, and they have been unredacted by mistake. The Xbox Series X refresh will feature more internal storage, faster Wi-Fi, reduced power, and a more immersive controller, and a beautiful design. The console also ditches the standard Xbox Series X disc tray. Let's start with the console. Chris, are you ready for a refresh?
I was until I saw that the disc tray was missing.
Yeah,
I still like my discs, but other than that, it looks really nice. It's got that kind of that bin look that everyone loves.
The Xbox Series bin.
Exactly, but and to be fair, it looks like Phil Spencer wasn't lying when he said that there's no need to release a pro version of the Series X, because it does look like the specs are exactly the same. So he was true to his word there. He didn't necessarily say they weren't bringing a new one out, just that that they weren't going to bring out an upgraded one, and it looks like that's the case. It seems to be more kind of environment-focused upgrades rather than actual performance-based ones. But it looks fine. I mean, I won't, like I say, I won't get it because I've still got lots of discs, and I like the backwards compatibility that I can still play some Xbox 360 games and stuff on it. So it's not for me, but for people who don't really care about buying discs anymore, it looks like the kind of a nice. The price obviously remains to be seen. We'll see what happens there.
Apparently, according to these slides, which it must be noted were meant for internal use only and are likely out of date, and this is kind of what Phil Spencer eventually said. November 2024, 2 terabyte for $499. Andy, as someone who's never got their Xbox Series X off, are you ready for a refresh?
Sorry if I sounded preoccupied there. I was busy screen capping the answer from Suda in our interview about Hotel Barcelona and sending it to him on Twitter with the word lies in all caps. Anyway, what are we talking about? New Xbox.
Brooklyn, new Xbox. You're going to get it. You love your Xbox.
Do you know what? Everyone is calling this, the biggest leak in Xbox history, but I don't think there's anything surprising in it whatsoever. There's a mid-gen refresh, which is just a slim Xbox. There's another controller. They bring out a new controller every bloody month, don't they? Okay, they're cosmetic ones. Bethesda's working on its biggest franchises.
Yeah. For me, it's more just the scale of it's the emails that for me is kind of counts as a bigger leak, because not even that there's anything necessarily juicy in them, because Phil Spencer wants to buy a Nintendo, surprise, everyone would love to buy a Nintendo. It's more just the fact that when private emails leak, especially when all their email addresses are at the top, that feels to me like the bigger leak, because when it's sensitive and like private stuff like that, it feels, in terms of scale, it feels big, even if the content itself isn't necessarily mind blowing. I think so. It's more the fact that all this stuff was meant to be secret and now isn't, that I think is more exciting rather than actually what it says.
I also think so. Let's do this in order in case people haven't seen this somehow, because I know there are some people that listen to this podcast, Chris, you might be shocked to believe, that have like normal lives and don't just sit on Twitter all day.
I don't believe it.
Videogameschronicle.com.
Citation needed.
Yeah, I agree. But next up, unannounced Bethesda games. This was their like supposed slate that was going into 2024. We know Starfield, Redfall. There was also looking like a sequel to Ghostwire Tokyo, a remaster of Fallout 3 and the Elder Scrolls, and the Indiana Jones games. The ones that are interesting to me, obviously, the remasters of Fallout 3 and the Elder Scrolls. Chris, do you think they're doing this Fallout 3 remaster, or at least plan to, because by the time Todd Howard is working on a Fallout 5, he'll be, 85 years old?
Potentially. I mean, it's also obviously worth pointing out that particular one's from like pre-COVID. Yeah. So it's saying stuff like this one, for people who haven't read it, this is a document Microsoft kind of passed around when they were looking to buy essentially by Bethesda and its parent, ZeniMax, its parent company. So this is like, here are the games Bethesda are bringing out that we would basically get if we took over. And yeah, it's quite out of date, because it says like Starfield for 2022 and stuff like that, because obviously then COVID happened and everything got delayed. But so we don't know for a fact that all these games are still going to exist. Certainly Ghostwire Tokyo, I don't see a sequel happening anytime soon, because the reception of the first one was pretty tepid. You never know. But yeah, if it does happen, yeah, you think that'll keep people busy until Elder Scrolls comes out in like 20 years' time, I would have thought.
Yeah. And the lineup also included a few projects that turned out to be things like your what's that one? The Xbox
Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush, yep. It just makes me think of Wee George for the Gamer, because I'm pretty sure he already has a tattoo of the main guy. But the one that was pretty cool to me, Dishonored 3 on this lineup, I would like to see that. The Dishonored games they fall into that classic Arcane territory of video game journalists absolutely love them, but they sell about 2 copies. Andy, how much of this lineup do you think Microsoft will stick to, or do you think this is basically just worth tearing up?
Yeah, I wouldn't kind of like put my flag into that, to be honest, because I think it's dated. Is it dated pre-acquisition?
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, 20.
Am I making that up?
It's a couple of months before the acquisition.
So for a start, you've got to take into account that they may have gone in house and then kind of reviewed a lot of those projects. We know for a fact that obviously Arcane were trying to pivot with Redfall at that point. So having the name Dishonored around that time doesn't fill me with confidence at all that it's necessarily going to come out. No, I wouldn't be putting my flag into that game at all. I mean, the remasters, obviously, they kind of tick like a different box. It's like you say, like kind of fill a hole in the schedule, kind of train a younger team, use it for hiring purposes if they announce it. So I'd probably guess that they're probably going to come out, but less so Dishonored.
Yeah, it's a real shame because like Dishonored 3 is, especially in an Xbox exclusive world, that would be a nice kind of game for them to get into that portfolio. It's almost a guaranteed like critical darling. It might not do loads. It's essentially like what Deathloop was before, because obviously Deathloop was in the weird situation of being PS5 exclusive. But yeah, I think the Fallout 3 remaster I think is a bit more likely than the Oblivion one, because it would seem weird to do an Oblivion remaster to tee up Elder Scrolls 6, whereas if you do like, if they're on this cadence, you presume if they're going to go on this cadence of like a Starfield, a Fallout, an Elder Scrolls, a Starfield, like getting a Fallout in there, instead of the last Fallout release being in 2015 when Fallout 4.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if they haven't got one of the other teams working on Fallout. I mean, Obsidian should be working on that.
Yeah, they should.
Right?
Like
it shouldn't even be a conversation. Yeah. I think they've even said that they'd love to do that.
And that is,
it's a complete no-brainer. I mean, their franchises they work on, 3 of them now, Bethesda. You just can't expect them to rotate and you to see more than one game every 10 years at this point, on the scale of what they are.
Yeah, the assumption being that if they've got Obsidian and it's the easiest thing in the world for Phil to come out at like a fan fest or whatever, or the June show and say, here's Fallout New Vegas 2, and everyone goes, oh, hey, like, you wonder if Obsidian would maybe want to do something slightly different with Fallout, especially after the Outer Worlds games, because that first one was obviously very Fallout inspired, and then the second one's coming along pretty soon. But it'll be interesting to see. They were also talking about a trilogy of Indiana Jones games rather than just one. Missing for me, Chris, another Wolfenstein. The third Wolfenstein reboot. I mean, the creator literally said we've not done Mecha Hitler yet because we're saving it for the third one, and it seems to be missing here.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I can unless that's one of there was Project whatever and Project whatever. There were a couple of kind of
Project Hitler. What do you think that was about?
Project Mecha Hitler, I think it was.
Yeah.
They had a couple of project ones which might have been Wolfenstein and all that. But we'll see. Like I'm happy if they want to do an Indiana Jones trilogy. That's fine as long as they don't do a fourth one. Because we all know.
I think that game's going to be really good. That Indiana Jones game.
It's going to have to be in it.
I bet it looks ridiculous.
I mean, you look at some of the guys they've got working on that. It's they don't. I mean, the game director is the guy who made Chronicles of Riddick and the Darkness. This guy doesn't miss. Like he made most recently, what was the indie game? Roku's Island Express, the pinball beat indie game, which was really good. He was at LucasArts for a while as well to work on an Indiana Jones game, ironically, that was cancelled.
Midas.
So it's a full circle.
Sounds like everything he touches turns to gold. So
there's a lot of kind of ex-Starberries, obviously, in that team, which is where they emerge from. So I reckon it's going to be really, really good.
What do you think kind of game it will be, Andy?
Have they talked? I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because there'll be people in the comments going, "Oh, I said this." I mean, if they said,
I'm pretty sure they confirmed it's a match 3 puzzler.
Didn't they say it was like first person or something?
I think that was,
or someone said that, like it was a leak or something.
Familiar.
I'm googling an Indiana Jones game first person,
and we're all going to sit in silence.
Apparently, it utilizes both first and third person perspectives, according to this tiny snippet at the top of Google, the source of which is questionable. Oh, reportedly, it's reportedly
right, so
first and third person.
We don't know then.
Says man. But honestly, the guy Jens Anderson, who's directing this game, he is absolutely shit hot. So assuming they give it the time that it needs, which from the sound of it, Todd Howard is like a big super fan, Indiana Jones super fan. He's exec producing this project. It sounds like it will get the backing it needs, so I've no doubt it's going to be an absolute banger.
Oh, also, last question on Indiana Jones, Andy. Do they pay the money to get Harrison Ford?
I doubt it.
So
I doubt it. You know, I wouldn't bet on that one either way.
Yeah.
You've got. I think I would.
I look
be
alike,
disappointed
or
if
just
they
a
didn't.
totally different person.
See, as long as they pay to put the music in it, I think that's more important to me.
You've got to have the fucking music. That'd be like making a fucking Star Wars Battlefront without the music. Like, I'd be shocked if they don't have the tunes.
You say that, but it's into John Williams.
Aye.
And he's usually sometimes his stuff's quite expensive. I remember Pinball FX did a ET table, an ET table and Jurassic Park tables, and the music is hilariously bad because it almost sounds like it's trying to be ET, but not too close.
Even Disney doesn't use it. It's John Williams music now. Like some of those Star Wars shows, it sounds like they've just given a geezer from the props department a MIDI keyboard. Like it legitimately sounds shitter than like the Rebel Strike games from 1994. Like genuinely sounds shitter than someone just having a go at John Williams.
While this podcast was recording, I got a recommended tweet pop up on the top of my phone, and it was you moaning about Ahsoka. So I'm just getting it 360 degrees. Andy's Star Wars reviews. Welcome to our new spin-off podcast.
I think today, through that particular tweet, I've learnt the word simp.
Yep.
Ahsoka is for simps.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The only clip I've seen of Ahsoka was on TikTok, and a certain returning act.
It's because you've been ignoring my DMs for the last 24 hours.
That wasn't even DMs. Was that a DM, or were we just spreading that in editorial? I'm sitting here.
Did you just glance at it like from your sofa?
No, it's because it was on Slack, and after 10 p.m. I don't get Slack notifications, so I woke up in the morning to like 10 messages on Slack from Andy saying, "Someone please watch this."
No one watched it
until this morning.
I'm sitting playing EAFC, talking to my girlfriend. It's just ding, 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 ding. Oh, this video.
See, you're worse than because you knew about it and didn't watch it. I only just found out about it this morning.
I wasn't going to go, excuse me a minute, let me just stop what I'm doing and put on this presumably hour-long video about fucking Ahsoka.
No, but you know what normal people do is you just go, yeah, haha, done. Not what I'm going to do is I'm going to blank it.
You are Johnny blank messages, the amount of stuff that gets put in that Slack, and you're just like, nope, not interested, go away.
To be fair, you would know if you were lying, 'cause if it's like an hour-long video and 2 minutes later we're like, brilliant.
Oh, that's right.
It's 10 minutes to be fair.
I promise I'll make a point of watching it this weekend. I'll get comfy.
I want you to live stream.
Story number 3. Phil Spencer was targeting a Nintendo acquisition, and these leaked emails, he was having a chat with Microsoft's Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer, Takeshi Inamoto, talking about, this was the era when Microsoft was on the verge of buying TikTok, which was a weird kind of era when Trump was ready for banning it. Quote, Takeshi, I totally agree that Nintendo is the prime asset for us in gaming, and today gaming is our most likely path to consumer relevance, Spencer replied in this email thread. I've had numerous conversations with Nintendo about tighter collaboration and feel like if any US company would have a chance with Nintendo, we are probably in the best position. The unfortunate, or fortunate for Nintendo, situation is that Nintendo is sitting on a big pile of cash. They have a board of directors that until recently has not pushed for further increases in market growth or stock appreciation. And then Spencer goes on to say that it was he keeps in contact with people that were at Value Act, and they had been heavily acquiring shares of Nintendo that could create opportunities for Microsoft. The funniest line in this whole thing for me, Phil Spencer says, at some point, getting Nintendo would be a clear moment, and honestly, I believe a good move for both companies. It's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see that their future exists off their own hardware. A long time. That is, creator of 4 of the 5 best-selling consoles of all time, Nintendo. Chris, you buzzing for our new Xbox Nintendo merger any minute now?
I'm pumped for it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, these are, like we said before, these are internal emails that we're never actually going. Like everyone, I'm targeting a Nintendo acquisition. I just don't have the funds for it yet. Everyone wants to buy a Nintendo, and it's also should be noted this was pre Activision, so obviously this is when they were looking for people to acquire, and then obviously they got their sights set on Activision, and you would imagine Nintendo's now put by the wayside while they try and get Activision instead. So it seems like, again, like I say, I think more the scandal is more that this private email was leaked rather than the actual contents, because it's like obviously Microsoft wanted to buy Nintendo, like I'm sure Sony does as well. I'm sure Disney does. Like they just don't appear to be for sale at this point.
No, people were going absolutely crazy about this, as if the next step was Microsoft were just going to hostile take over them, and that would be it, and Mario would be on the Xbox Series X coming this holiday. But Andy, surely, like, if the opportunity arose, they would be like being irresponsible to their shareholders not to pursue something like this.
Yeah, sure, theoretically.
Yeah. How much would you cry? I don't know. I don't think there's is there anyone on this earth that wants to see Microsoft own Nintendo, other than everyone with a Xbox avatar in my mentions?
I'd quite like.
Is there any way, shape, or form when they would become anything other than more?
I'd quite like achievements in Metroid.
other than that,
no.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. It's like, and again, what would happen if that was to? It's all theoretical stuff. It's like, would Microsoft just sit back and just let them do what they want? Because they would have to. Like we saw what happened when they bought Rare, and I know that was a long time ago, and we can't really compare what happened back then to now. But you've got to imagine that basically Microsoft bought Rare and took all the rareness out of it. Like if they're going by Nintendo,
you had to basically turn them into a new company.
So why would they want Nintendo, other than purely for financial reasons? Why would they want Nintendo? The worrying bit, which you say, Jordan, is the key quote there, is him saying that Nintendo's future exists off of their own hardware, and nobody wants a Nintendo that gets bought that doesn't then release more systems, because Nintendo's systems are generally innovative.
And what a statement to make! Like at the time when he wrote that. Like, they've sold 120 million Nintendo Switches. Yeah, these guys sound like they definitely don't have a future in the hardware business.
This was also 6 months
don't know
after
what they're
Animal
doing.
Crossing came out, and you couldn't get a Switch anywhere because it was...
I think they've sold more Switches than Microsoft's last two consoles combined.
Yeah. It was...
I do like feel like it's a little bit harsh even having this conversation, because I'm not convinced that that's a genuine kind of sentiment coming from him. Yeah. He's humouring the guy. He's essentially explaining why they're not going to buy a Nintendo. Yeah. So I think kind of even entertaining this with serious analysis
because the context, people don't know the context. This is a different guy from Microsoft who basically sent him an email saying, why are we trying to buy TikTok? Why don't we buy someone like Nintendo instead? And Spencer's basically replied saying, yeah, we'd love to buy Nintendo, but they've got shitloads of money and it's not happening. That's basically the story in a nutshell. And like, obviously the important bit there is he would love to buy Nintendo, and that's technically the newsworthy bit, but that's about as far as that story goes. Like he would. The most
newsworthy bit.
The newsworthy bit for me is there was a conversation about it. And it was a secret.
Well, the most newsworthy bit is him saying that he thinks their future is off hardware, which is incredible.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Where's Microsoft's future in that case? Off planet.
After all this happened, Phil Spencer came out and said, so much has changed, which I'm sure is actually completely true. Quote, we've seen the conversation around old email and documents, he tweeted. It's hard to see our team's work shared in this way because so much has changed and there's so much to be excited about right now, and in the future we will share the real plans when we are ready. Also, the context missing from a lot of this internal doc stuff is all these slides accompany a guy standing there in front of you in this meeting for 3 hours explaining the context of everything. Yeah. Like, people were going crazy about on one of the console slides, it was like this console's adorably all digital, as if they would ever say that in a public setting, that it's not just to go to the suits and go, well, this is kind of what we're thinking of. So,
and he's partly right in that he says so much has changed, because like we're saying, a lot of these documents are just from random periods of time. Like some of them are from like 2020, but then some of them are from like late last year. So like the stuff with the controller and the new Xbox design are more recent, and they're more likely to be legit. The stuff about buying Nintendo and the Bethesda game list and all that is from 2020, and a lot has changed in the past 3 years, especially with COVID happening and stuff. So I would put less stock in those being going concerns at the moment, but certainly the stuff about the console and the stuff about the controller, you would imagine are more likely to happen, because these were documents being shared like just a matter of months ago, like late 2022. So that seems legit, but the other stuff seems out of date now.
Yeah. This will make people unbearable for the next several decades, centuries, whatever. I'm going to put a moratorium on this podcast when we ever do Xbox predictions in the future, from people going, well, if you remember in those leaked documents, we're not counting them. That's cheating. Next story: Glen Schofield is leaving striking distance after the Callisto Protocol misfired.
Another Schofield steps down.
Fucking hell.
Are you okay? Is everyone okay?
That
should have been announced by Big Holly. A crafting representative
Big Holly. Sorry,
told Bloomberg Schofield has decided to pursue new opportunities, and that Striking Distance Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer are also leaving the company voluntarily. The project, which was Callisto Protocol, received mixed reviews when it was released in December, and this was just a month before the critically acclaimed Dead Space remake. In January, an analyst claimed Crafton had targeted 5 million sales for the Callisto Protocol, but following a slow start, it could struggle to reach 2 million by the end of 2023. Bloomberg reports that Striking Distance has laid off over 30 members of staff in recent months, and now has a headcount of around 90 employees. Striking Distance Chief Development Officer Steve Papoutsis will replace Schofield as CEO. Andy, was this a surprise?
Probably. I think he did a really good job. I mean, you can see from lots of other cases at the moment that it's not easy to set up a studio and put out a kind of AAA caliber release on deadline. I mean, the game was like a sort of 7 out of 10 seems to be in terms of its critical consensus, which is good going for your first game. Like building, I mean, I've done this, building a game and building a team at the same time is not easy. Yeah. You're like building the house like without half the staff, while you're going down the motorway. It's not easy. And he's managed to do that. So I don't see... I mean, something's obviously happened behind the scenes, but I don't see how... But the game supposedly sold like 2 million-ish and they expected 5. Okay, fair enough. That's the risk you take. It arrived at a time when when kind of medium-sized games were performing really badly. The cost of living crisis coming in. So across the board, there's loads of examples of those medium-sized games like doing badly. Like the biggest example being Marvel's Midnight Suns, which obviously like basically they gutted all of them, which is an even more ridiculous scenario. But I think some of that was probably them, the personnel just being ready to go do something else. To be honest, so I don't see how on the point of view of Crafton, it is Crafton, isn't it? Though, if they would be expecting anything more, I don't see how he could be forced out. Let's put it that way, because I think from the outside they did a really good job. And the point is they then go to second game and it's much, much better because you've got a whole team there. The guy has a proven track record. So, obviously he had certain expectations and they've probably not met those. I mean, he's the sort of guy who knows that he can walk and he'll just go and build a studio somewhere else. I find it funny is not the word, but a bit of trivia. It's the second time that Steve Papoutsis has succeeded Schofield, because they're both at Visceral together on Dead Space. So when he left to Sledgehammer, Papoutsis took over his role. And I remember interviewing Schofield at Gamescom about 10 years ago, and they were actually going head to head. And I asked him about it, and I think I was the only journalist who clocked on. Like, it's a bit weird going head to head with your old like number 2, because Papoutsis was making Battlefield Hardline at Visceral, and I think Sledgehammer were doing Advanced Warfare. Yeah. And he said something like, "Oh yeah, I saw him on a plane." It seemed a bit awkward, but obviously I was really happy when they got back together to work on this. But obviously it's a shame that it's not worked out for.
There was also that week where Papoutsis hosted This Morning, just for a while, which I thought was quite good. Like obviously a 7 out of 10 is a 7 out of 10, but do you think did Dead Space harm Callisto? Were there people going? Again, like Andy says, the cost of living crisis, people were kind of tighter with their wallets. Do you think some people thought, I'm going to wait and see if Dead Space is better or worse? And by one,
well, it's an original IP. It's an original IP that launched at 70 quid. And, you know, again, it came right in the middle of this storm where these middle-sized games were suffering. You know, it came out the same month as Midnight Suns, which absolutely bombed on its arse. And undeservedly so. Brilliant game. I think Rabbids didn't do so great as well around that period. It's just unfortunate, but again, it's obviously critically it's been well received, and it's sold like a couple of mil. I mean, obviously not what they expected, but that's good going. You know, they've established a team. It's really hard. You're seeing it at Microsoft now. It's really hard to establish a team that are capable of putting out games, shipping games on time to a standard. It's not easy, right? Like we've seen how long Fable's been taking, how long Perfect Dark's been taking. It really is not a trivial thing. I'll just put your job ads up, especially now with the competition that's out there. So I think he did a great job.
I'm not. I think the game's fine. I just mean more in terms of when they announced it. The gimmick, the sale was, this is a spiritual successor to Dead Space, made by the guy who worked on Dead Space, and then all of a sudden, before they know it, an actual Dead Space is coming out a month later, and that selling point is kind of diluted quite a bit when you're up against the thing you're trying to spiritually succeed. So I just think I get the feeling that if I only had enough money to buy one game and I like Dead Space, I was going to wait and hold fire and see which one did better and then buy that one. So I just get the feeling that as good as the game was, it was hampered by external factors.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could play that one either way, right? I mean, if this game did well and the other one bombed, you'd be going, oh, it's because it came out first. If I was a Dead Space fan, I'd buy the one that came out first. Yeah. The new one. I've already got the other one. It's all ifs and buts, I think.
Well, instead of spending your money on Callisto Protocol, what you should have been spending your money on is the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 1, which seems fantastic. The various issues in the Switch version of the Mortal Kombat 1 will be fixed, says Ed Boon, speaking to BBC Newsbeat, shout out. It will absolutely be getting an update, apparently. Quote, a number of the concerns of the issues that have come up will absolutely be addressed. It would have been ideal for us to release the version we absolutely wanted, but anything that we're finding a problem with is on our list and is going to be fixed. Chris, have you touched this? Have you put your hands on Mortal Kombat 0.5?
I haven't. I've seen footage of it, and to be perfectly honest, a lot of it is what you would expect from a Switch port of a current gen game. Yeah. That's why I've been wary of slagging it off too much, because certainly some of the screenshots we're seeing are laughable, like some of the kind of character models and stuff. But I'm also aware of how social media can exaggerate something by zooming right in on a face that appears for one frame and covering the screen with it.
No.
And so I'm wary of it turning into like a witch hunt. Certainly I've seen some stuff that is less forgivable, like a fatality where a guy gets his head punched off and the head just kind of floats in midair and like stretches. So there's like legit game affecting bugs that I've seen, and stuff like the invasions mode is only half. They've only added the prologue at launch and they're adding the rest of it later. Stuff like that's not forgivable. But the graphical stuff I'm less likely to go into footed on, because it's a Switch port of a game that's infinitely more powerful hardware. So I get how it looks, but there's some things that should be addressed, including bugs and missing content.
Was this always going to happen, Andy?
What, people moaning about
Mortal
Switch
Kombat
games?
specifically, yeah.
I mean, I think Chris has made the point. I hate to be boring and again give the leveled response, but what were people expecting? I mean, these are screen grabs of like mid animation, port of on 10-year-old hardware. Effectively, it's like Switch game doesn't look as good as PS5. Shocker.
That's exactly it.
I find it all quite disingenuous, basically, that this always happens, and then if you were in isolation, you had it. You go, it's fine.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's like, I mean, if it was Switch 2 and people expect better from it, fine. But the hardware as it is just now, it's the fact that it skipped PS4 and Xbox One. We should be like stunned that it even runs on the thing in the first place. I mean, the Mortal Kombat port, the last Mortal Kombat on Switch was decent for what it was. Like it also launched with issues. It runs okay. I mean, if you want Mortal Kombat on the move, then it'll do. I mean, you can practice your combos on it and stuff like that. So I appreciate the argument that it's $70 and you're getting a lesser experience, but you were never going to get the PS5 version in your hands. So yeah, I don't know. I get the disappointment, but I'm wary of feeding the overreaction as well.
Fair enough. Look at you two, bloody level-headed. I need a reactionary on this podcast to really spice things up. You should sell Nintendo to Microsoft. They know how to make games that run well. After the break, we'll be talking about EAFC and Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. And we are back. Chris, it's the happiest time of the year for us. It's EAFC. Later today, you'll be able to play EAFC. I've been playing it since Tuesday. Manipulating the market, playing so much Ultimate Team, playing the same people at Ultimate Team over and over again, and more often than not, Googling them, and they're either a highly ranked professional player or a fellow journalist, which was deeply embarrassing when a fellow journalist beat me 8-4 and then tweeted me about it.
That's poor.
Yeah. Anyway, EAFC, this year's FIFA, and it's this year's FIFA in more ways than I could have possibly imagined. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Chris, this year very much so far feels like get the word FIFA off of everything, put the words EAFC on everything, and then just get it out. It is a stopgap to what I hope would be a more genuinely different game next year. In terms of, there's always, I think, the criticism of sports games is so boring when it's like, oh, it's the same game every year. It's demonstrably not. But this year very much feels like FIFA 23.5 just because there is so much upheaval. And some of the biggest differences are Ultimate Team is the main mode I play. Mm-hmm. The Ultimate Team menu system's been totally redesigned, so you can just hold L2 and it'll give you a drop down of all the menus, and you can just go straight to that. So you can go from like transfer market straight into rivals and play. You don't have to do all that kind of crap. There's now an evolution system where you can take a crap player, do challenges with them, and like improve the card, which is nice. And there's from an interesting divergence from FIFA already, the first promo, which will start on Friday, is like, here's some Nike sponsored cards. So they're going really heavy on that. What are you expecting when you use the little New Zealand method later today?
Well, like you say, I wasn't expecting a massive revolution. Like, FIFA works. People like FIFA. As much as people complain, fix the servers, which I never really understand that vague argument that people always point at EA, fix the servers, if that means anything. I had expected an evolution rather than a revolution. So that sounds about right. It's weird because I wondered what was going to change between them because obviously it's happened in the past with the Madden franchise. Madden in the past has tried kind of interesting new things, and the NFL have always stepped in and says, no, let's not have that doesn't, like concussions and stuff like that. Used to be, Madden used to let when a guy get injured, an ambulance would drive onto the field and like run over people in its way and all that kind of stuff, and that lasted like 1 year, and the NFL said take that out. So when the FIFA license got dropped, I expected to see a bit more freedom in terms of, and it sounds like that Nike stuff. Sadly, that freedom has become sponsorship deals. Whereas I was hoping we'd end up getting stuff like the option to have referees making mistakes, or the option to dive, or stuff that you get in real football, but FIFA might have in the past said, this makes us look bad, please don't put that in there. So that's the sort of stuff I was hoping for, maybe VAR stuff and all that, even if it's just in single player mode, because obviously that can break up a multiplayer game. But if you're playing single player career mode, like cutscenes for VAR and stuff can make things more exciting.
Terrible decisions going against you, and you have to respond to it in the press.
Exactly,
and stuff like that.
And you need to write to the
We'll
SFL.
go to the SFA next week.
But yes, but I get it. It's to be fair, for me, I took a year out. I only dabbled with FIFA last year because I kind of got FIFA burnout. So I'm massively excited to get back into it after my year on the bench. That's a wee football term there.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm looking for. I was expected. By all accounts, the Switch version is the one that's the biggest revolution, because ever since FIFA came out on Switch, it has been like FIFA 17 on the 360, the same game every single year. And from what I played of the beta, like that they brought out recently, it's totally transformed. So if you're a Switch FIFA player, number one, how dare you? And number two, like finally you're getting feature parity by the looks of it. Although I need to kind of properly investigate more deeply. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the coming months, because you know that EA's got content planned for seasons and stuff in Ultimate Team. And you're going to get weird collaborations turning up at certain points, I would imagine. So we'll see.
Yeah, they dipped their toe with like the Marvel heroes and stuff like that. That was kind of interesting. Obviously another big change to Ultimate Team. There's women in Ultimate Team now, so not only does that mean there is thousands of new players, meaning the pool of players you can pack is diluted even further.
Yeah.
And it also changes it gameplay wise. Although the biggest gameplay change I've noticed, they have these new playstyle things which are kind of similar to the badges in the NBA series. So you can get players that have like gold crosses, and the crosses thing that was the really the thing that got me. So Manchester City winger Chloe Kelly, she's in my team. She has gold crossing, which is like every time she crosses the ball, it finds like a perfect header. Like it is broken pretty much. Like I did it last night, I was playing it and I was getting like no luck going in the middle, so I would just send it to Chloe Kelly, and wherever she was on the wing, she was pinging like as if she was crossing it on beginner straight to the striker. And it's weird because these like gold play styles seem pretty rare, like only like big like prominent players will have them, but it feels like as the game goes on and every like an NBA every player has every badge, it will become like even more arcade.
That feels like the sort of thing they'll nerf though, because I remember when 23 or 22 came out, you could score overhead kicks so easily, like and they kind of softened that down. That's the one thing I kind of respect EA for, and I know you're not allowed to say that because that's a bad thing to say, but they do listen and they do eventually kind of make tweaks to the gameplay. So we'll see. I'm up for it. I'm excited. I'm going to my New Zealand trip, although apparently it's 1 PM and not noon. I tweaked the guide because apparently because we're on BST just now, they're only 11 hours ahead or something like that. But it's cool.
See.
So yeah, I'll get an hours in before I start working today.
Just opening your packs. This weekend will be the big thing. By Monday, the kind of OP strategy will be determined, and then by full release next week, I bet EA have got a pretty good idea about what they need to change.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Chloe Kelly bombing down the wing, swinging it into Cody Hackpo for the header. It's been pretty good. Next up, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, the expansion to a game that I didn't like very much, is here. I've reviewed it on the site. You can go and check it out. It's basically a side story that you can either play in the middle of your like main campaign of Cyberpunk, or they do the thing where if you just want to play this, you can make a character and just jump into this, which is nice. It's like a spy thriller. V is contacted by a mysterious figure. I'm keeping it vague because it's very story heavy right at the start. Yeah. You go into Dogtown, which is a new area that is in you can see it in the main game, but you can't explore it. and as you arrive, the president of the new United States, who is on Space Force One, crashes into Dogtown. It's a great visual, like the plane like crashes over your head, and then it turns into like really. Cyberpunk was great at big single player spectacle, and the DLC's even better at it, to the point where it's like, I don't really feel like this needs to be an open world game, to be honest. Like, I'm really enjoying just plowing through these single player missions. You get caught up in a caper, we'll say, with Solomon Reed, who's played by Idris Elba,
right,
who has is putting on an interesting American accent. It's an American accent that just every so often ducks
dabbles
back into
Cockney.
Luther. Yeah. So yeah, you're doing that, and the missions are they're interesting in the sense that they're not all shoot bang bang. Like, there's a mission where you go into a casino kind of area, and it's all talking basically. It's all, you're getting information off these two net runners, and the entire fun of the mission is just like talking to them, which is a nice kind of, it's very Casino Royale, it's very Mission Impossible. Like, you'll see those comparisons pop up everywhere. All that stuff's great. It looks ridiculous. Cyberpunk still looks ridiculous. I suppose the downside for me is, I think the open world of Dogtown, which is pretty small, is quite boring. It like reminds me of the worst parts of Cyberpunk when I'm driving around Dogtown. It's just like, this is just kind of window dressing to go to the main missions. But that paired with the 2.0 update, which changes like everything about the game, really makes it like, if people were completely turned off by Cyberpunk, especially after everything that happened, they were like, I'm never touching this again. This is a reason to go and do it. Cyberpunk defender Andy Robinson, you come in.
I mean, I think we talked about this before, didn't we? That it's a game of kind of contradictions, really. That on the sandbox has never been good. So it really does depend what type of player you are. Like, I loved the original game, but I came in and played it as a really fantastic, linear, cinematic, first-person action game, and the sandbox was like just a bonus. Like, I just travel through it from mission to mission, right? Like, dabble in maybe some side content, but not much. If you go into it like GTA, like, I'm going to shoot up the police and blow this stuff up and slap this pedestrian and see what happens, that's when it starts to break. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Dogtown is like, it's not like I think they've probably gone lore first on that one.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice if there was like something that was completely different from the rest of Night City. But certainly, like, the 2.0 update, it's absolutely transformed the systems of the game. Like, it's just so much better. I mean, you're better off starting the game again.
Yeah. Because
I continued my save, and you have to rebuild your character anyway, because it's so different. They just give you all of your skill points back and stuff, and it's just completely overhauled the tech tree and the kind of augmentation and stuff like that. You are better off starting a brand new game, because it's like, especially going into it after 2 years off. So, oh shit, what do my skills used to be? Like, what's this? Like, what are my big metal arms?
See, when they first announced that the next gen upgrade was coming, or current gen upgrade was coming, I went and bought Cyberpunk because it was really cheap at the time, and I just haven't got around to playing it. So it seems like my laziness has paid off, because I'm basically jumping in version 2.0 and I don't get to see.
You've got so many games to play though. Didn't you leave Zelda for like a Japan trip and then you didn't play that? I'm sure there was another one as well.
That's because I ended up playing that Mickey Mouse.
Not started, and then you've got like Mario coming out as well.
I know. And, look, it's a good time. It's a good time and a bad time. But
have you played Pikmin?
I don't care about Pikmin though. Pikmin's not my. I love the characters in Pikmin, but it's not.
Don't think Pikmin cares about you, Chris.
Listen, Nintendo are on the phone to me every week saying, "What should we make next?" I said F-Zero 99, mate. So you're welcome. I know. There's so many big, like, and I mean big as in lengthy games that I've got sitting there, and it's actually quite terrifying. But we'll get there one day. When in like 2028, ask me about Zelda. Then we'll talk.
I'm gonna get you a T-shirt that says that in 2020.
Well, that's why I'm wearing an Atari T-shirt, because I'm still working my way through 2600 games. That's how big my backlog is.
What, right, Chris? What console? And don't say like the fucking Virtual Boy or something. What console do you think you've played the highest percentage of the library of?
Not counting the ones I've done books for, because I've done 100% of the library for those. Do you mean just in my normal life? 360.
Nice.
Because that was the point in my career when just review codes for 360 games were just getting chucked around like confetti. So yeah, most new games that came out, I managed to kind of dabble.
How many Xbox 360 games do you think there are, Chris?
Some like 4,000 or 5,000, isn't it?
Andy, do you want to guess?
4,000 or 5,000.
You're counting Live Arcade as well?
No, we're not. In a box.
This is list of Xbox 360 games.
I think I've got most of them. I've got literal boxes and boxes of Xbox 360 games in my attic.
Wait, it can't be 4,000 or 5,000 because I'm potentially writing a contract to do a book for it.
It's going to be
so
like 1,000.
It must be less
know
than
this more than me.
Must be around 2,000 or less, because otherwise I wouldn't have agreed to do a book about it.
It is 2,154.
Yeah,
according to this is Xbox 360 games that were released via retail disc, digital download, or as part of Xbox Live Arcade. According to Moby Games, there are 9,357 games on Xbox 360, but I think that list is incorrect.
Yep, check.
I've got a stupid amount of Xbox games.
Yeah.
Like that's working in the games media throughout that entire gen. Like I was there when it launched and there when it for Xbox One as well. So in those days, now for the last 10 years, I'd say, physical code is not a thing, right? Like they send you a download code, but in those days they'd send you a disc. So you can imagine how many discs I've got. It's absolutely
I've got
ridiculous.
CD wallets full of Xbox promo discs, and not all the boxes just up in the attic because they just take up so much space. But I wouldn't chuck them because a lot of them don't. A lot of them were never very.
They did a really good job of not making the promo boxes look cool or special. They just look like a shit photocopy.
It was proper CEX bait, so to make sure nobody would ever trade them in. The cover's all faded and it's got a big yellow thing across it saying promotional copy, not for resale. But you go to CX and you still see plenty of them.
Oh yeah. I'm sure the CEXs of Bath are absolutely littered with them. But I got the very back end of this when I came in, so I've got quite a lot of PS4 promo copies and the Xbox One. But
PS4 ones were shit though, weren't they? Because it was just like a CD box, a blank CD, like a clear CD
like
jewel
case,
as
right?
if you were buying a dodgy CD off a guy from the bars.
There was a ridiculous situation for one of the Lord of the Rings games where I got sent. This was when I was at the BBC. It was I got sent code for both consoles, and then on release day I got sent 3 PS4 promo copies and 2 Xbox ones. So this big box turned up from Warner, and I was like, oh, they sent the fancy edition, and it was just 5 copies of the game, and I was like, what am I meant to do with any of this stuff? Crossed wires.
Crazy days.
But yeah, that was a halcyon days indeed. Those 3,500 PS4 games.
How many Switch games are there though? That must be pushing 10,000 now.
How many Switch porn games are there? That's the real question. How many Switch games are there?
Are we going to listen to you Google?
4,526.
That's bullshit.
Oh my
There's
God.
definitely more than that. Definitely more than that. But
join us on next week's episode of How Many Games Are There. Chris, you been playing anything this week?
Yeah, bits and pieces. I've been playing The Crew still.
Oh yes, the world's most annoying game. There's an advert for that on there now that does my absolute tits in.
Oh really? It's the same as it was last week. It's the actual racing is really good and really compelling. The voice acting is I would tear my face off. It's so annoying. So yeah, it's a really good game. But it's if you've got access to Forza Horizon 5, just play that. If you're on PlayStation and you don't, then The Crew is a good alternative. But it is a shameless attempt to recreate it from the intro to the outro, if there is an outro. It's Forza Horizon 5. But it's fine. I'm enjoying it. But yeah, turn the voice acting to 0 as soon as you can.
Andy, you played anything this week? Or have you just been chasing that adorable little dog around?
Been playing F-Zero 99.
Oh yeah, that came out.
I'm super impressed how much effort they've put into that. Like I thought it'd just be like, boot into a race and a one-off, but the fact they've added like a whole ranking system, unlockables, customization that you can add. There's like different challenges and cups, and it's brilliant. It's properly brilliant. Like they've low-key released a whole new F-Zero game. It's not just, like Tetris where it's, just a small kind of like gimmick almost. It's a proper game. So I'm loving it. I've just started Phantom Liberty as well. I wish I could have started that earlier, but I've had COVID. So I've just started playing that. I'm looking forward to playing that properly. Like I said earlier, I'm tempted to start again actually because it's so intimidating. Kind of diving in from a 2-year-old save and trying to work out where the bloody hell all your skill points have gone. Yes, that is what I am playing.
I'm playing absolute shitload, a metric shitload of EAFC. There will likely be a review on the website.
What are we going to call that in the future? Because EAFC doesn't really roll off.
Too long, isn't
it? Are people just going to call it FC, or are they going to just keep calling it FIFA? Like people still say Twitter instead of X.
Yeah, all the FC content creators I watch on YouTube have just been calling it FIFA, like out of habit, basically. But yeah, EAFC is too much. It doesn't. Do I get my FC right later? It doesn't. Yeah.
But EAFC all kind of merges into one kind of word.
FIFA. PES. Like that was perfect.
Yeah.
No one calls it eFootball. You want to go up the roof for a game like eFootball? That get fucking uninstalled.
Unless you're the FIFA head. What's the greatest game for boys and girls?
Big baldy Gianni Infantino.
That needs to be the headline of your review. If it is good, the best game for boys and girls.
Well, now you've stolen it. We're not allowed to do funny headlines on this website, Chris, as you well know. Next week, I mean, the games keep coming and they don't stop coming. Are we at least getting a little respite here? I know that. I mean, no one has it yet, but I mean, Spider-Man's coming down the track. That's gonna be pretty soon. When's Mario, Chris?
Mario's mid-November.
As Dr. Mario?
Mid-October.
In about a month.
Mid-October.
A month till Mario. It's
Sonic
really,
the same
really
week. Sonic's a few days before it, I think.
Also,
Alan Wake as well is the same sort of time, I think.
My only respite is that I was down to do Alone in the Dark and it's been delayed to January, so at least get to breathe for a second.
Oh, Assassin's Creed Mirage coming soon as well. Oh, good games. We're eating good, boys. We're eating seriously good. So, Chris, if you're doing Mario, then does that mean I get?
I don't know if I'm doing Mario yet. I think Andy's going to steal that from me. To be fair, he put the effort in with Pikmin, so I would have no complaints there. I'll claim Sonic though. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okie doke. We will be back next week. Thank you very much for listening. You can watch the VGC podcast if you're an audio listener on our YouTube channel. If you are already watching, thank you. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. They're always deeply insulting. You can follow us on X at Scully1888, at Andy Platonic, at Jordan Midler. I'm on Blue Sky. Are you on Blue Sky? I'm periodically logging into it, but I completely forget about it.
But I changed my my Twitter.
Finally.
Oh, you changed it?
It's Andy_VGC.
Is it? Oh, Indian, yeah.
I know.
I didn't even notice that. And I regularly abuse your Twitter from my alternate accounts. Andy_VGC, apparently, whoever the fuck that is. Don't like that at all.
Who's that guy?
That doesn't work for me. You can check out the site for a million things. Check out my FIFA coverage, which will hopefully be tomorrow.
EAFC coverage.
Oh, Jesus.
Come on.
It's EAFC coverage. Until next week, say goodbye, Chris.
Goodbye, Chris.
Say goodbye, Andy.
Goodbye.
See you next week.